All right. Who had 927 in the chat? Who had 927 in the chat?
We did have someone in the chat. I do want to. Ooh, there it is.
There it is. Congratulations, Jeremiah Morris. Jeremiah Morris is the winner. All right. Well, sorry again. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back. If you were here a little while ago, then you got to see me, so you already know who I am. It's your girl, Danie Joy here. Hanging out with the one, the only, the Miss Fabulous. That's Alex McFarland, Shawshank, whatever you want to call her. But either way, it's Mac Daddy to everyone else.
Clad in some MCU PJ pants.
There you go.
Yeah,
very on brand.
Yeah, we got Spider-Man, we got Captain America, we got what's his face from Fantastic Four.
Okay,
I got a lot of people in my PJ pants.
Yeah, that one guy. That one guy that's hanging out. That one dude. Speaking of that one dude, we are hanging out tonight, y'all, doing a match breakdown against John Rocha, Ethan Erwin, going into this match. And unfortunately, we do not have John Rocha here with us tonight, but we do have a little bit better. The one, the only, Mr. Craig, the Barbarian.
No, we get a flip.
What's up, guys? Well, I get more room to both my arms from the other way. It's it. And yeah, they still. My wingspan's too long. My wingspan.
It's so I've always heard that your wingspan is normally how tall you are. Is that true?
Or the length. No, that doesn't make sense.
I don't know. Am I? I don't know.
It might.
Unless I got short arms, maybe.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions to ask tonight and a lot of things to talk about tonight because this was a very, very highly anticipated match. John Rocha, Ethan Erwin. But first, Mr. Craig, we are so happy to have you here with us tonight. You are now officially an honorary C2A member because you've been on a few times now. So welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Always a good time being on the C2A with you guys and with you fans. Let me pull up the chat. I apologize. I was dealing with internet issues before, so I'm having trouble getting the chats in here. There we go. I see some people in there. What's up, everyone? What's up, Brandon? What's up, Jake? What's up? Well, see anything? Okay, that's all you got in my chat right now. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to read the chat very well throughout the thing, but if you guys want to show me, pull up any of the important ones. Not that any of them are unimportant. There we go. What's up, people? It's good to see you. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, look at Brandon right there. He's got the same shirt as Craig.
Man. What?
Alrighty.
What did Star Drew lose a bet about who would win this match?
No, maybe he's talking
about what the start time for this.
Maybe he's talking about our bet. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what bet he's talking about, but we had a bet that we haven't settled yet.
Yeah, well, we could settle it tonight if you want.
We'll figure it out. But we are getting into this John Rocha, Ethan Erwin, Finstock Exchange, number one in the factions. You guys have been number one for quite some time. It's very interesting to see. So, Alex, I want to know from your perspective, how are you feeling about Finstock Exchange? There's always been this kind of talk about that faction being stacked, and I want to know your opinion on the exchange.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I was one of those people for a very long time, going into this. I was like, well, Gucci, it's so biased for him to do well. He's not that great. He's fine. He's whatever. I never even get that much confidence from people in his faction talking about how amazing he is as a manager, one-on-one training. Does it train? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Some managers are very tight-lipped about what kind of style they have as a manager, and some people are very vocal about it. So, it's also kind of depends on what competitor you're kind of working with, obviously. However, I would say he is one of the best managers out there. Not only obviously because he came into this league having some really great people in his faction, such as, Founding Fathers, Bateman, obviously. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, he's been able to draft really quickly some amazing rookies such as Craig down here. If it wasn't for Gucci, would we have Craig and Schmedan at all? I don't know. You were drafted very late. Andrew also, he he was drafted a little bit later as well. And I'm supremely grateful for a lot of his, later additions for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm definitely grateful for that as well.
We are as well.
we're all the real winners over here. We've seen a few things about Gucci being a manager. There are some people who say he doesn't do much as a manager, but any person who I have talked to that is a faction member of Gucci has always praised him as a manager. Craig, I would like to know from you, as a member of the Finstock Exchange, like, how well do you work with Bobby Gucci?
I mean, look, Bobby Gucci is the heart and soul of the Finstock Exchange. I owe him a ton. I owe him for drafting me and bringing me in the league. When, look, at the end of the day, I've gone on record a couple different times. It's like when I was there, the first day I checked out the show when Christian invited me out, I introduced myself to 3 different managers, and the first 2 didn't really give me the time of day, and the third one was Tom Dagnino, and he and I just really clicked, and he said he'd draft me, and he stuck to that word. And, so even from the get-go, it's like I owe that to him. And, when we very early on, he's like, all right, let's figure out, let's figure out some character stuff for you. Let's figure out how to get you over. Like, he's been integral in helping me, do that. He's been integral in helping me before and during matches. And so, it's one of those things where, even though people are getting to see a little bit more of the managers, on the screen, and some managers are doing very hands-on and showing their thought process in the middle of the matches, that's not how we do it. That's not what, we don't want to give away the secret sauce. We want, we want to, keep some of our tactics to mystery. We don't want the rest of the league to know, our strategy.
And that's something that a lot of players keep near and dear to their chest, and very rightfully so. You should. We do know that the exchange does have a very infamous text thread, so there's a lot of studying and a lot of studying going on for all of you for each of this going into it. So I'm never going to ask what are your studying strategies or anything like that. But getting John ready for this match specifically, how did you as a faction mate feel you could help in getting him ready for this?
As John spoke about on backstage and in the post match of this game, like, he and I were working very closely for several weeks on this, and I can't get too into detail on exactly what we did to prep, but I just I'll tell you that we part of the reason why he was so emotional at the end of this is because he put hours and hours and hours of work into this, and he got himself to a level that he felt like he was the peak John Rocha. Like, he felt like this was one of the best matches he'd already ever had, and I would agree. And and sometimes it's like when you're playing blackjack at the casino, sometimes you can play the hand perfectly and still lose, and that's the case. Unfortunately, that happened here. He played not exactly a perfect game, but he played an incredibly terrific game with some good strategy moves and some, it's one of those things though that even when you do something that on its face seems like good strategy, it may turn around to bite you in the end.
Yeah, definitely. Alex, you're also someone who works fairly closely with John Rocha. You have a show with him. You hang out with him mornings with the Outlaw. Was there anything that you saw a change in him? Did you see like this extra bit of confidence behind the scenes or anything like that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure, like working with Craig, obviously, a lot of that confidence really came from that extensive training. He was, whenever we would do the show and people asked him, I was Schmodown all the time, he would talk about, I have several people, including Craig, that's helping me, and Ben, that's able to help me work, to really improve my knowledge and do a lot of these new study strategies he's never used before. And he's just talked about how confident he is, more confident than he's ever been, going into not only the potentially the singles tournament or to get the belt, just because he's never played as a efficiently. He kept using that word, efficient. He keeps talking about how he's much more of a strategic competitor rather than, because he plays with his gut, which is definitely good. But he definitely, I think having Craig and Ben really gave him a lot of those benefits by being much more of a strategic, analytical player as well.
Yeah. Well, I love hearing that from the both of y'all. I think anyone who knows the call to action history with John Rocha, it's been rocky, but I don't think that there's not a single person who watches this league who can't just give John Rocha the props that he is due. He definitely does put in work. He wears his heart on his sleeve when he's in his matches, and I think that's something that we all know and see. And he deserves all of the proper accolades. He really does. He truly is a great player. So it's really nice to hear you all say that, because I think that's something that we all know. John Rocha deserves all of the good things inside of the Schmodown. So before we get into it, really quickly, again, this is spoilers. If you haven't seen the John Rocha Ethan Erwin match, then go ahead and go watch that first, then come back over here and come and hang out with us. Leave comments if you're watching this on the playback. Let us know where you're at with it. So before we get into this match, also, this is a manager mashup of I'm so sorry. Totally just mind blanked right now. Sam Levine and Bobby Gucci. So it's these two managers going head to head, who I think have two very different managerial styles. Somewhat similar, but mostly it seems like Sam might have a little bit of an ace up his sleeve with Rachel, maybe kind of being behind the scenes. Go with that, Craig. Does that ever factor into anyone on the exchange going into anything against the usual suspects?
Well, it's hard to say specifically one way or the other. I don't think that we really take the Rachel of it into account, and that's no disrespect to her, but as much as we take the Sam of it into account, which is to say that Sam himself has always been a very strategic player, and he himself is you'll see in this match he does things specifically designed to impact the game, and so he and that's why I say we take Sam more, because Sam's one that gets on camera. He's one that's actively doing things during the match. So he's a little bit of a wild card. And, I feel like you say the word wild card, we're talking about a manager. I don't think that Gucci's the most wild card of them all. But at the end of the day, Gucci is a very respectful manager to the opposing teams during the matches. Like if you watch these matches, he's not one of those managers that gets in there and is actively berating the opposing players. He's not, all he says on the camera is positive reinforcement to his players.
That's very interesting. Alex, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a huge change from where he was before. This is definitely, I don't consider Gucci a face right now, but he's definitely on the tween face scale for sure between them. A tweener for sure. There was if you look at maybe just a season and a half ago, how different he was as a manager, where he was an active heel. It's kind of crazy to think how much has changed, and I actually really love that. You can't have the greatest faces without some huge transitions like that.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. So we are going to do things a little bit differently. If anyone was hanging out with us in the breakdown before, we didn't really watch a lot of the video footage for this match specifically because we have Craig here. We are going to kind of break down a little bit more of that game tape. So technical issues are a normal C2A thing, so I do not have control of these reins. So I'm going to let Alex take over the video portion of it, and then we're going to start. We're not going to get started with any of the manager talk. We're going to go straight into round one. But before we get started, going into this match, what were y'all's overall feelings? Hype, worried? What were your feelings going into this match, Alex?
Considering the record, I felt really bad going into it. I was like, I do love an upset, but I also feel like it's kind of weird. I never look at Rocha and think upset. I would never consider him like, the one where I'm like, yeah, potentially he's going to lose. Like that never occurs to me for Rocha. No matter what league it is, I'm like, you're probably going to win, regardless of who you're going up against. But also with that in mind, Ethan, they've played 3 matches before this, and Ethan has beaten him twice before this. He was 0-2. So there's something about Erwin that really, I don't know, something gets to him maybe. So
Yeah,
I think Ethan, Rocha was very aware of his record with Ethan, and I think he felt this match was important for his legacy because of that. And I think that's part of the reason why he was so motivated. And you can see like the fire that he had in him to, prove that he, isn't just, going to get taken over, have his legacy taken over by, these newer players like Ethan Erwin. And, so for me personally, I felt confident going into the game. I definitely don't underestimate Ethan, I've known him for a long time. And I know that just even through just personal experience with him, he just knows random minutia about everything. And so it's, he has been on the record saying that he, doesn't really study for the Schmoedown very much. However, I assumed, given the state of things and given how, given how his season went last year and the opportunity he faced this year in terms of being able to, get a title shot if he won that match, I knew he'd be taking it very seriously. But that said, even if Ethan was prepping and studying and training, there's no way he was doing nearly as much of that as Rocha was. And there's just, and that's so because of that, I felt very confident for Rocha going in.
Yeah. Very good. Yay. Okay, so we're going to get right into this game tape, and we're going to go through round 1 really quickly. I do know that there are a few things that we can discuss on round 1, and when we get to those points, we are going to pause and then kind of discuss them, and then just go over with Craig how he feels as a competitor with it and stuff like that. So Alex, I'll let you put that game tape up.
Yes, ma'am. Let's do this.
Yeah, thank you to everyone hanging out with us inside of the chat. Also, thank you for dealing with these tiny bits of technical difficulties that we've had.
All right, is the volume okay, or would you like me to change it?
Those are asked to the field. Each question is worth 1 point. There's no penalty for missing a question. There is no stealing, at least not in round number 1, but I'm pretty sure you fellas already knew that. As soon as we ask the question, you have 15 seconds to write down your best attempt at an answer with whatever utensil you have handy on whatever whiteboard surface you prefer. Once we ask you by name or nickname to reveal your answer, please show what you wrote to your camera at the same time you verbalize your answer into the microphone. I'll remind each competitor of your 3 usages of the JTE rule throughout the duration of the match. You're not sure you heard a question right, you want to buy yourself some more time, use a JTE rule. You also each have 1 challenge to be used at any point throughout the 3-round match. You as the competitor may initiate the challenge. It must be ratified by your managerial components. Christian, they're sat, they're ready to go. This is old hat, no pun intended, Rocha. They know how to do this. It's just a matter of who's going to do it a tiny bit better.
All right. Well, we asked the outlaw. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Ethan, are you ready?
Sorry.
Always be closing.
Then let's get ready to Schmoedown. All right. Round number 1. Question number 1. Gentlemen, here it is. Action Adventure. Day of the Soldado is the subtitle of the sequel to what 2015 action thriller?
I have not seen this movie, actually.
It's a very good movie, though. I feel like action thrillers
talk right now.
Not exactly. To me, it's not exactly the appropriate genre to describe it as, but I would think that's
2, 1. Pens down, please. You start with Rocha.
Yeah.
Sicario?
Yes, sir. Ethan.
Sicario.
1-1. Next question, Mark.
Solid penmanship by both competitors early in the match. All right, gentlemen.
Denny Villeneuve.
Next category is 80s movies. We all
Gotta
remember
love
that decade
that man.
somewhat. What 1984 comedy revolves around a college fraternity called Lambda Lambda Lambda? 1984, good year for a lot of stuff. Christian, where were you?
Waiting for this match.
I think you hyped it up enough.
Alex, can you pause it real quick?
4. I'm excited. 3.
Thank you. Okay, so one thing that we talked about, I'm going to remove this for a quick second. So one thing that we talked about in the last breakdown was the different formats that have kind of come in through season 7. So Craig, this is your first time. This is your rookie season technically. We knew going into this season that some questions were going to be asked again. I did not see that in this match or the undercard match in that before, but does that ever come across your mind, like especially for round 1? Like, do you ever go back and check old game footage for studying?
I mean, for round 1, that's kind of for round 1 would be a little difficult too. But I would say for when I did the Intergeekdom tournament, that was something that I definitely watched a ton of game tape with an eye on. Because if they're telling you, hey, here's 40 matches worth of questions they're basically telling you a cheat sheet with Inner Geekdom, it was very doable to just rewatch all those matches and make sure that I was familiar with those kinds of questions. And I feel like there was a question or two that it really helped me with going through. I remember the John Humphrey in my match against John Humphreys, where there was a question about why does Clark Kent return to Smallville at the beginning of the movie. I haven't seen Superman 3 in a very long time, but I knew that answer right away because it was something that had been asked in a previous match. So now it's much less feasible to do that with, singles and teams because there have been just the sheer volume of matches. It's, take you hours and hours and hours and hours to do that. But, for Inner Geekdom, it was definitely something that I applied to my studying.
Nice. Very cool.
Lucas went through every single match, start to finish, in maybe a month. And he would watch anywhere between 4 to 8 matches a day.
Was he taking notes?
No, that's the thing.
Way to
But
go.
I have a friend of mine that he actually wrote down every single question.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And multiple choice. And it's
that's some.
Well, why would you write down the wrong choices? I'm confused
for
why you would do
multiple
that.
choice, just to recognize them. So for study purposes, be able to read and recognize them, I guess. I don't know. He did. That's what he did.
It just seems like a silly thing. You only need to know the correct answer.
I know it, yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
But to each their own, I guess.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that was all that I had on that one. So I'm going to bring this back up.
Yeah.
And then Alex.
2, 1. Pens down, please. Hands up. And
Ooh, I couldn't write it. I said Animal House.
that's incorrect. And Rocha.
I know. Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, you had it. All right, Rocha. 2-1. 2-1 first lead there.
Not to throw too much shade Ethan here
All
for
right,
that.
next question.
Animal
Here
House
it
came
is.
out
This
in
is
the
question
70s.
number 3. In the world of dramas, who stars as Dr. Bennett Omalu in the 2015 drama Concussion?
Do, do, do,
So,
do,
you
do,
got some
do,
great posters. Schmodown Pass behind you there, Harlow.
do, do.
Oh,
How many
yeah.
waters does the
Direwolf.
man
Five,
need? That's
4,
what I
who's
want to know.
boss? 3.
And just some Stellas
1.
down there.
Pens
I
down,
love
please.
Stella's down
And
there.
we start
I
with
do love
Rocha.
Stella.
Will Smith.
Yes, it is. Ethan?
Will Smith.
Correct. All right. So 3-2. Rocha has a 1-point lead as we get to question number 4.
They told
Alex,
the truth on
you
that
wanna,
one. Your next
like,
question.
speed
Famous
through just a
actors
little
and
bit?
actresses. And the question for
Okay.
a point. Which
Just,
actor played the comic book characters?
Or
Just
like,
what-
no,
What
sorry.
iconic actor?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just how sometimes if you hit the side button, it gives you 30 seconds or something like that instead of using the mouse for it. Sorry, everyone. This
Like
is
there?
why the technical difficulties are
Like
weird.
this one? Are you talking about this one?
No, No.
Which one?
Not
I
that
don't
one.
I don't think it has it on here as an option.
Yeah. What am I missing? What am I missing?
No, it's not. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I was just trying to speed through the round so we don't have to like sit and just like wait through it. But it's fine.
Well, we can vamp. We don't have to just sit and wait. We're good at
Yeah.
vamping.
I can mute it.
Why would we want to do that?
Turn the volume down.
Okay, muting. Well, not muting, but
So you
turning
don't
it
mute
down
but
now.
Turn the volume down, yeah, just so we can at least hear it.
Played
Yeah.
I'm a Hotep in
That's good.
1932's.
Yeah, this is a hard one to me. I was like, oh dang.
You know,
I brought up
and so this one here is a hard one, but at the same time, it's one where, you know, it's one something that I haven't spoken with Rocha after the match. That you know his you know in terms of a strategy, a strategic choice he made here was to not use a JTE to think the question through more.
As we have
And he did that, you know, he did that specifically because he wanted to conserve them for later in the match. And you know, he ended up getting that one wrong. But he, you know, also feels confident that had he used JTE, that you know he could have gotten it right. And if he'd gotten that right, it would have been another 1, maybe 2 points that went his way. You know, but it's, you know, when you're going up against someone like Ethan Erwin, who is, you know, one of the best players in the game, you know, you want to, you know, he really wanted to focus on making sure he maximized on those third round points.
Yeah.
Down, please, Ethan.
The third round has more possible.
John.
Randy Newman.
7-7.
Well, when it comes to JTEs, you can. There's several different.
Number one, exactly what we thought.
There are several. Obviously, you want to use them if you need them. First round is not always the best time to use them. However,
Pause it, Alex.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Yay. And then I'm gonna scooch this sucker out of the way really quickly. Okay, I'm sorry, Alex. Do you want to finish your thought? I'm so sorry.
Oh, is obviously if you just like, I know some people that I recognize. There was a handful of matches, like older matches, not this one obviously, but on when to use when and when not to use JTE. So you don't want to use a JTE if you're just having trouble with it. If you just don't know the answer, like not even an inkling. Like you don't even have a slight image of your face. You never heard of the movie, the actor, whatever it may be. Don't use it. Don't waste a JTE. Just get the question. There's no purpose. If it's like right on the tip of your tongue, that's different.
But in this instance, though, I mean, we're talking about 1930s monster movies, and there's really like 4 different people that play these roles. And so, you know, he went with the first one that came up, but then thought to himself that it was, not the right answer. And he could have gotten to the correct answer. So this was an example where he didn't straight know it. It was one of those where he needed time to think. But, you know, at the end of the day, in the first round, these questions are the least valuable points in the game. They're 1 point each. And, you know, it's, you know, it depends more on the game situation for everyone. Again, it depends on your opponent, depends on where you are in the game, within the game, and you know, and again, sometimes, you know, it's very easy to Monday morning quarterback a match like this and the decisions that were made throughout. But you know, it was a direct strategy that Rocha used in this match to not use a single JTE rule in the first round.
Yeah, it's also, I think, if the thing is, if you get all your questions correct in the first round, obviously it just adds fuel to the fire. But also, if you walk into the second round and maybe you get like a 5 out of 8, which is still, it's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. You know, you kind of look back at some of the questions and maybe you could have gone a 6 out of 8, which doesn't seem that much better, but for some reason it looks a lot better, I guess, stats wise, going into the second round. But you feel so much better. Your momentum going into the second round is a lot stronger, I guess.
Mental warfare. I see it.
It's weird. Yeah, it's.
But I mean, it's, you know, but again, it depends on, you know, the type of play. You know, what's your mental fortitude? Are you someone that needs that, or are you somebody that can, brush it off? Are you somebody that can, because again, you missing 2 questions in the first round, that equals to 2 points, whereas a single question in the third round is at minimum worth 2 points. Mm-hmm. So, sure, it lowers your percentage, but it's not as meaningful to the actual game.
True. Very true.
Very true. So before we go into round 2 and wrap up round 1, I want to bring this up from K Wolf. 2 bucks saying big salute to the Barbarian. You are awesome, sir.
Thank you, K Wolf.
We agree. And we also have a Streamlabs donation from call sign Ben Sucks. Donated $5. Hey, Barbarian, big fan. Can you not be on a faction with Ben next year so I can root for you? Thank you very much.
I mean, here's the thing, Ben. I'm assuming you're talking about Ben Bateman and not any of the other Bens in the league, but Ben Bateman is one of the best players in the game. I equate him to the Triple H of the league. He is the cerebral assassin. He is as strong as anyone, and he's always a threat to win that title.
I agree. Yep.
I agree, but no. This is the Action Army. No.
Yeah, Ben Bateman is still a traitor to the Action Army, and we will have a lot more stuff to say on Ben Bateman coming up in the next few weeks because that is on my calendar. So I'm ready.
When Ben gets to beat Andrew Guy and then challenge Dan Miller for rematch.
That's gonna be a whole thing. It is obvious. It's gonna be a whole thing.
It really is. Okay, so end of round one. How are you all feeling about this and where the match is going and what's going on so far? I'll start with you, Alex.
It's going pretty good. It was, I mean, like both players are playing very fantastic. I was very surprised Ethan didn't get the Revenge of the Nerds question, to be honest, because to me, that's a big one. It's a pretty iconic college movie, but also just a pretty iconic 80s comedy. I mean, I saw that for the first time when I was like 8. So, I mean, but everyone's different, for sure. But also at the end of the day, he also got the first question wrong. So was the first competitor in this match to get a question wrong. I mean, so, again, it just comes down to, like Craig saying, what kind of competitor are you? If you're a rookie and this happens, that could probably start to chip away at you. But if you're a strong competitor, you know what you're doing and everything, you can just brush that off like it's nothing. So.
Yeah, what about you, Craig?
I'm feeling good. That miss, the horror film miss that he had, it was, it wasn't related to anything that he and I had specifically gone over. So it wasn't like he, missed something that we'd studied. And I feel like it was, an understandable miss. The question Ethan got wrong, I felt was like a bigger blunder. I mean, of course, the point wise is still the same, but he named a film that wasn't even close to the release date that they said, and like I said, it's the Lambda. It's the Tri-Lambs. That's pretty telling. It's very much a 1 point question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I very much agree. So going into round 2, we did kind of discuss, and we've discussed this before in other breakdowns, how this new era, no pun intended, for the Schmodown, we get to actually hear the managers confer with their competitors on screen. So we get to be a part of that conversation and see it. And sometimes it's been good, sometimes that's been bad. So for both of y'all, Alex is a fan. How do you feel about being able to see these conversations?
I think it's actually really crucial to see it. Having that interaction behind the scenes I feel like it's crucial for a competitor and a manager to have that kind of check-in, obviously. But it's different for everyone. Some people like having that kind of check-in. Sometimes, like, I don't want to say competitors need to be babied, but sometimes they just need that competitor to be like, hey, we're good. We got this. Some people, some people don't. But it's also like really nice to just have that confidence booster in general. Like, who doesn't who doesn't love someone like Gucci or Kaiser, Winston to be like, hey, you are the best player ever. You got this. I mean, that's such a really awesome, like, little moment, you know? I mean, like, if that happened to me, I would cry. So, I mean, who wouldn't love that?
Yeah. And so, Craig, for you as a competitor, now that you have to be on screen, and you have done in studio matches before, so you've had a taste of both of these. So now that you have to have your manager on screen with you, so everyone can see, does that change anything for you as a competitor?
Yeah, no, it 100% changes things, and honestly, it's a handicap for us. Because there are things that you would talk to your manager about in private, things that you would say to your manager, things your manager would say to you, that you wouldn't want to air publicly, especially in front of your competitor. And so you're not able to say everything that you're thinking. And, and there are a number of other reasons why it's a handicap that we have to do these matches in the way we're doing. I mean, for instance, if you look at the if you look at the matches that the tag matches that they're doing, I think it's a huge disadvantage that you don't get to hear the answers that your opponents are giving in the in their round two. The fact that for instance, one of the answers in yesterday's match, not to give a spoiler away, but one of the answers in yesterday's match, huh?
Oh, it's just a quick, tiny spoiler warning.
Yeah, no, it's not really a spoiler, but one of the answers in yesterday's match involved the name Christopher Reeve. And the team that said it did say correctly Christopher Reeve. However, that's one of those names that they could have very easily said Christopher Reeves. And that's something that would have been very easy for the judges to not catch and to award the points, for them, even if they'd given the incorrect version of the name. And had that happen, and again, this is hypothetical at this point, but it's one of those things that you as a competitor, while you're watching the game, you're keeping your opponent honest and trying to make sure that they're only given points for things that they're actually answering correctly. And the fact that in those tag matches, you're literally banned from hearing the answers that your opponents are giving, you're having that taken away from you. And sure, your managers are able to listen in, but guess what? The managers aren't as good at movie trivia as the players are. That's why they're managing and not playing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and I completely agree with that. And I can't put any sort of perspective on it because I don't play in this league, so I don't have a stake in the game. I just get the advantage of being able to watch it and enjoy it as a fan. It does seem like a big disadvantage for the players, and that bums me out because I would love for y'all to be able to have as much teamwork and anything else that you need to help you get through a match. But as a fan, I do kind of enjoy being able to see that interaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the sports documentaries. It's like, you're watching a football game, you don't very often get to see what the halftime speech is that they give to people. But you're watching a football movie, that's one of the most exciting parts of the movie.
It's true. Very, very true. Yeah. All right. Go, Alex. I'm so sorry. Go for it.
I was going to say whenever I manage my competitors, we actually come up with code words. I'm not kidding.
That's clever. That's good.
Well, it's just like we change it. We'll say we change it up.
That's very smart, actually. I'm actually I might look into stealing that.
Our big thing is just coming up with code words for certain places. As far as like talking, because my competitors, we game plan pretty strong ahead of time when it comes to picking slices, strengths, weaknesses, opponent's choice, spinner's choice, and whenever it comes to picking a slice, going first or second, I don't like to go up based off the gut. I don't like to base off emotions. Which is totally fine if you do. The thing is, it's just I look at a wheel and I'm like, statistically speaking, I know these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses and these are kind of gray on. Statistically speaking, based on how many ones that I actually really like versus ones that I don't like, I like to spin the wheel this way or that way, depending on it. So if my opponent is, if I understand the stats of my competitor, I can recognize their strengths and weaknesses, and I can be like, okay, the wheel is statistically in my favor, or it's not in my favor. So if it's not in my favor, I would want my competitor to go first, because they're more likely, depending on also if like how many strengths they have as well. That would determine if they could possibly take a slice off the wheel that I don't like. Therefore, it would increase my chances of getting a strength that I do like.
Yeah,
and also
conversely, they could take away, if you only have a few strengths, they could take away one of your only strengths. Like I did to Adam Lovick in my first IG match, and like I did to John Humphrey in my second IG match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true.
Yep. So, Alex, I want you to keep that fan league manager mind frame in this next round coming up. There's one part coming into this prep, listening to these managers talk, something that Craig talked about earlier that I think could be what he was referring to with what Sam Levine is going to say coming up into this. And then as soon as we get to that part, we'll pause it and then we'll skip through some of the rest of round 2. But I'm going to bring this up. And Alex, if you don't mind skipping through the rules and then just we'll just scoot it up a little bit forward. I'm sorry. Right before they spin, just that little pep talk that Sam Levine gives Ethan Erwin.
Yes, I am going over to it right now.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I believe
obviously I should go with one of the ones I put on there. I feel is a smart move. I guess I'll do it.
Someone from the chat actually brought up a good question. Kind of curious.
All right, Sam, gonna remove you here.
As a IG competitor, Craig, I'm curious what you think about this question. I just thought of this. Would Hollywoodland movie about George Reeves be considered a DC movie?
Yes, we are. Catherine
It's a bio.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
All right, Ethan, I'm pretty confident in this category. I mean, you chose it. It's winner's choice. So here we go.
Alex, if you don't mind pausing it really quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. So we missed it. I'm going to bring it off really quickly. We missed it, and I'm not going to be worried about going back for it. But I'm wondering, Craig, if this was the situation that you were talking about. It's when Sam Levine comes back up on screen. He's pep talking Ethan Erwin, and he's telling Ethan Erwin that miss is going to bug John Rocha. That's going to get into his brain. It's a pep talk that Sam and Ethan are having between themselves, but we know that everyone has access and can see it. Is that what you were referring to for the?
No, exactly. Sam plays Mental Warfare. He's been around this game long enough. He knows how to get under people's heads, especially against players that he has long history with, like John Rocha. And so he knows what to say to try to get under Rocha's skin, but Rocha also knows that Sam is going to try to get under his skin. So it's kind of a maneuvering tit for tat of, trying to make sure that this doesn't affect his gameplay.
Now, as really quickly, Alex, as someone who pays attention to stuff like that and has always paid attention to John Rocha specifically and how he responds to certain things, when I heard Sam say that, I instantly thought, oh man, that really is going to bug him. But what I saw from John Rocha after that, he did not seem fazed at it at all. So, Alex, again, as someone who works with John, did you see that from him as well?
There's a reason for that, because he wasn't listening. he told me flat out is that he was watching he was when that, because he didn't want to distract himself, he was actively watching on his he was actually watching on his phone some kind of soccer football match. And so he's actively not listening. He's not paying attention to anything he said, because he said he knows the type of competitor Ethan and Sam, what kind of competitors they are. So they are gonna say something like that. He didn't know Sam even said anything apparently until I asked him about it later that day.
How funny.
And he's like, wait, Sam. And I was like, hey, what did you think of what Sam said, during his pet talk? And he's like, what did he say? And I was like, he said that, that's going to bug you that you got the loss the first round. And he's like, oh, I didn't even realize. So that's why it didn't bug him going into the second round.
That's hilarious. Craig, how are you feeling about that?
I mean, like I said, it's Mental Warfare. So he knows going in there that Sam's gonna try to get under his skin, so he does what he can to prevent it.
I love that. Yeah, good stuff going in there. So before we get into watching the rest of the match, we're gonna just kind of speed through it. So Alex, whenever it comes back up, just if we okay, so really quickly. So John Rocha is
I feel like we're going to watch the very first question of this second round.
That's a challenge. It's about to come up here in a hot second.
Absolutely, that's gonna happen. So Ethan Erwin was the favorite going into this, correct?
Technically, yes.
So Ethan Erwin.
No, Rocha was Ethan the favorite? No, Rocha was the favorite.
I always honestly I thought Rocha personally was the favorite. However,
I thought Rocha had the higher ranking going in.
He does technically have the higher ranking.
So
However,
he deferred to Ethan, and Ethan. It didn't matter either way because Rocha always defers and Ethan always goes first. So it didn't matter who was gonna get the chance. Ethan was always gonna spin first. Ethan always spins first, and Rocha always spins second. So.
Yeah, well, that was my whole point for that part of the conversation was who had made the decision for Ethan to go first. Was it Ethan deciding to go first, or was it Rocha deferring to Ethan? So now that that's cleared up out of the way, we will get to that spin and that first question, Alex. So I'm going to bring that up, and then I will let you get us there.
Whoop, whoop. 2017's Detroit depicts real-life riots which occurred during what decade?
The 60s.
I'm going to assume you meant the 1960s.
I did mean the
60s.
Oh. I don't know. Should we challenge that, Tom? I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's true.
Could have been the 1860s, the 1760s.
That's true.
Mark should not be helping you answer the right question.
1776.
I don't know.
Are you doing an official challenge?
Alex,
he didn't say 1960s, and 1960s is the answer. Tom, what do you think?
I put in for a challenge. That's not clarified.
Okay.
The 60s could be the 60s.
Okay, should we pause this?
Yeah, go ahead and pause it right now.
Let's pause it right here. First off, I mentioned I shot PJ a figure before or after this match and said, hey, at the end of the day, why didn't you ask for the exact year instead of the decade? That's kind of an easy question. But, I think this, there's been a lot said on post shows about this. And at the end of the day, this is a completely valid challenge. And I would say do it 100% of the time because, Ellis specifically says, we're going to assume you meant, you can never assume what the person meant. Mm-hmm. And when people say, oh, well, on the wheel slice, it only says 70s, 80s, 90s in terms of movies, that's because, A, we know that they're talking about decades of film. There were no decades of films in the 1870s, 1880s, and 1890s. Also, beforehand, we're told what specific decades of films they are. So it's not like there's any ambiguity there. Mm-hmm. Now, what Ellis should have done, and I feel bad for Ellis and Christian for having to do all they're doing all the announcing for all these matches themselves, and there's a ton, and unfortunately they get picked apart for some of these, and this isn't a knock on Ellis, but what Ellis should have done was he should have prompted Ethan to be more specific instead of saying, well, I assume you meant this, and had he done that, Ethan would have given the correct answer of 1960s. We assume, but we don't know for 100% fact. And after that, look, I would say 99.999% likelihood that he says 1960s when prompted. But it's the fact of the matter is that he was not prompted to give that answer. And because he was not prompted to give the answer, the challenge was valid. And not only was the challenge valid, the challenge was upheld because it was valid. Mm-hmm. Now, Ethan didn't give an incorrect answer. So because he didn't give an incorrect answer, you're not going to, dock him the points for it. But what you do is you throw out the question like they did. I thought that it was a perfectly valid challenge, and I thought it was handled perfectly by the judges.
Nice. That's a wonderful perspective to have on it. My first gut reaction when I saw it was, come on, it's common sense. And because Rocha kind of chuckles just a little bit, I thought maybe he doesn't really take it seriously. But after watching it back a couple of times, I completely agree with what you're saying on it. I think it's a very, very valid challenge to make, and I think it sets a big precedence for the Schmodown in the future. And that's definitely going to be something that a lot of people are going to be paying attention to. Alex, how do you feel about this situation?
Yeah, I totally agree. I've heard a lot of people make the arguments, it's like, oh, if people are talking about if people are talking about the 80s, 20s, 30s, whatever it may be, people automatically assume the 1920s, 30s, and 80s. The thing is, we're not talking casually. This is a competitive sport. This is a match, and there are rules where we require our competitors to be hyper specific when it comes to their answers. Now, I do agree that Rocha, he's not questioning Ethan. He even mentioned that he would have never challenged if Ellis hadn't said a thing. However, he did respond by saying, "And I assume you meant the 1960s."
Exactly. He's not laughing because he's not taking this seriously. He's not laughing because he's not taking it seriously. He's laughing because the announcer gave him the answer.
Yeah.
Because the announcer said, "Well, I assume what you meant was this, so we'll give it to you."
Well, there's a lot of I don't want to say leniency, but there's the host, the announcers, there has been a history of unintentionally. So I'm not saying the announcers are saying leaning towards this competitor and hoping for them to win or anything. Obviously, that's definitely not the case. It's just like sometimes as announcers, sometimes you saying these casual comments like, "I assume this," or whatever it may be, and that happens often enough where we just got to be able to recognize it and be able to be like, okay, we consciously got to stop that. Because it's happened with several times, with Christian, Ellis, Clark Wolf did it a few times, now realizing Emma, and it's not a flack on them. It's just that we do stuff like that all the time, not really thinking about it. So
right, yeah. And now it's something that people are going to think about.
And also briefly, as I was saying before, in terms of the executive, so they had told both Ethan and Rocha what the wheel slices were going to be about an hour before the match. This, in my experience, happens basically before every title match. You get an hour of knowing what the exact wheel slices will be, so that you can have a little extra time to prep and whatnot. And so before the match started, I made sure that Rocha knew what year that film took place in. And had they asked the specific year instead of asking for the general decade, I know that Rocha knew the answer, and I don't know if Ethan would have known that answer. Do you guys know the answer?
I didn't. No, I don't.
I've never seen the movie personally. No.
Movie took place. The riots themselves took place in the year 1967, and the film was released 50 years later. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I am familiar with general riots and in Detroit.
Yeah.
And
this was about a very specific incident that happened in Detroit.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That kind of hyper specific one is very difficult though. Yeah, but that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I am glad that they issued. Actually, scratch that. We are going to be going into the results of said challenge here in a minute.
So let's pull that up, and then we'll get that. We'll start that right now.
For the 60s. So.
All right. Well,
I mean, fine.
Challenge is up there. Challenge is up there. We're going to confer with myself.
And honestly, Ethan says, "Yeah, fine," because he knows that the challenge is valid, and he knows that Ellis, prompted him, and he realizes that he realizes he's in trouble here.
Yeah.
He gave a little chuckle. I was like, okay, fine. He's like, fuck. It's like, it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, the decision to just throw out the question instead of marking it as incorrect was, unfortunately didn't sit well with Rocha, but I think you could fairly say that was the correct thing to do. It didn't sit well with Rocha because at the end of the day, you're playing someone like Ethan. You want to get any kind of advantage that you can. And if there's any chance at all that they would have, said that the answer was wrong, you take those 2 points. But they did not, of course.
Ben Rayner in the chat. How much does Harloff hate challenges?
So much.
Well, I think he hates them only second to the corona pandemic. I feel like
it's really kind of weird. After the first one, I feel like you can see the agitation and just like how, I don't want to say pissed, but he's just like, oh, not again. Like even watching the IG, not going into spoilers on that match, even the IG last night match, you could see based on the body language, and there's points he's like, "What's the challenge?"
I think it's just when it's a live event, it's just a different type of stress.
Yeah.
And we
You're
are
just
coming
trying to be
back
mindful
here,
of
ladies and
time.
gentlemen.
Very
We
true.
have
And we're coming back
officially
here.
Made our decision here, Mark.
We have ruled that Rocha's out of the game. He's done. No, what we're ruling is as follows. Ethan responded with the answer of the 60s, and then me, the host, wanting to, move the game along, assumed it was the 1960s. Probably should have asked him for a clarification. I didn't, even though I think we all understood what Ethan was trying to say. Officially, he did not say the correct answer, and I gave it to him. So the only fair ruling is for John Rocha to retain his use of a challenge, and we will ask Ethan a new first question in the world.
No. That's ridiculous. You asked.
That's how it always. That's how it always goes.
You assisted him in answering that question. There were riots in the 1860s as well. It's not our job.
Was Detroit like a big city in the 1800s? It doesn't matter. It's moot point, honestly.
Yeah,
I looked up
and also this isn't a history movie showdown. But I will say, I'm not sure. I haven't read up on what was going on in Detroit in the 1860s. But I can tell you that Detroit was around in the 1860s, and I will tell you that there were other cities that had riots in the 1860s. Whether or not there were riots in Detroit in the 1860s doesn't matter, because it's whether or not Ethan thought there were riots in the 1860s, or anyway.
So the point is that we can walk away from that challenge wanting to blame Alice. Alice. Worse. Oh, just kidding.
No, but at the end of the day, I think the challenge was handled fairly, and
in May 2011. There you go.
All right, question number 2.
Ethan, in the world of Catherine Bigelow, which 4-time Oscar-nominated actor stars as a member of a motorcycle gang in Catherine Bigelow's 1981 directorial debut?
You can tell though that challenge really got under Ethan's skin, though.
Yeah.
So I mean, psychological warfare, man.
Question number 3.
I was really hoping he'd miss that Willem Dafoe one, because that was another one that Rocha and I discussed.
What is the military rank of Jeremy Renner's character in The Hurt Locker?
This question got a lot of people talking also.
That is correct for 2 more points.
And all right, here's the final.
If we want to talk about this briefly, if you want to pause this.
Pause it.
And so, now, first off, at the end of the day, we didn't challenge this. Rocha didn't challenge it. Bobby Finstock didn't challenge it. And we didn't challenge. They accepted the answer. The answer was accepted. That's, at the end of the day, the end-all, be-all of it. However, this is a very problematic question. And the answer Ethan gave was incorrect, because his rank is not sergeant. Now, his rank, it's kind of undetermined. I will say, the research that I've done on it, there's no actual definitive source on what his actual rank was, because if you go to IMDb, they list him as staff sergeant, and if you go to Wikipedia, they list him as sergeant first class. And I've spoken to people who've parsed through the script, and they said that in the dialogue they say sergeant, which is something that you do, but for short, but that in the action lines it's referred to, describes what his actual rank is. I forget which one it was. Point is, because there's no definitive answer to what his actual rank is, if it's sergeant first class or if it's staff sergeant, this question just shouldn't have been asked. This shouldn't have been, this question shouldn't have gotten to the stage. And had it been challenged, I believe that the ultimate result would have been similar to what happened with the 60s. That the question would have been thrown, Ethan would have been given a new question. Because it's not how they address him, because because some people can address a staff sergeant and a sergeant first class as sergeant. but that's not their rank. And the question was, what is his rank? And the ranks are very different in the military. And it's something that Rocha pointed out, because Rocha himself was in the military. So he understands more than civilians how much the rank matters for people in the military. But at the end of the day, we didn't challenge. So the question stands and the answer stands. But it was a question that probably should not have made it into the game. And had it been challenged, it would likely have been thrown out.
Greg, I have a question for you as a competitor when you're dealing with challenges like that, because Rocha had just gone through a challenge before. Is it something that you don't want to risk when challenging so soon after a challenge?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think. Look, if you have standing, if you have if we had realized the specifics of this, and again, this was, as Ethan said before he spun this was a wheel slice that Ethan himself had put on the wheel. So this is something that Ethan had done more prep for than Rocha, and we had done so we did as much prep as we could in the hour for this and the other wheel slices that we had just found out the hour before that we really needed to hyper focus on. And so the specific rank of Jeremy Renner's character in the Hurt Locker was not something that we had given much attention to in the precious moments that we'd had. So had we known that, 100% we would have challenged it, but it was not one that we knew in the moment. So no, it's we didn't challenge it because we didn't know that it was the wrong answer.
Yeah. Interesting. Alex, how do you feel about that entire situation? Challenging it, the answer to the question, the wording of the question, what Craig added to that? How do you feel about all that?
Yeah, I'm just also listening to Craig while reading the chat as well. And I definitely agree with you, Craig. It's definitely a really iffy question. I don't want to say it's a trick question. It's a very awkward question to answer since it's not technically addressed. He is called Sergeant, but you're right. That's not his actual ranking. So what you're called and your actual ranking are different things. My dad was a sergeant in the military for a very long time. And he technically was a master sergeant, for a long time. However, he was called sergeant for a very long time as well. So, but thing is, that doesn't mean his ranking was sergeant, because there's a lot of different rankings within the sergeant, specific category. Yeah. So it just depends on how hyper specific do we want to be. I can understand the confusion for sure, but I do agree with you, Craig. It's definitely iffy.
Yeah. It's definitely I don't think it's a trick question. I just think especially because there's no definitive answer listed online. The fact that Wikipedia and IMDb disagree on what his rank is, and both of them disagree with the rank that Ethan said. It's there's no definitive answer listed there, and a question with no definitive answer shouldn't be asked.
Yeah, I'm all about that statement. Again, also, I do not compete inside of the Schmodown. I do not have a stake inside of the Schmodown. I do not hold stock in this. So I just very much care about it emotionally. So it's whenever challenges and things like this kind of come up, and for me, I just had a complete brain fart and completely forgot where I was going with that. We're talking about staff sergeants and terms and challenges, and I can't remember. So I'm going to pitch it over to Alex. You got something to say so I can figure out my brain?
Yeah. So I mean, it's just definitely it's just kind of one of those things. It's kind of a weird. Maybe if it was reworded.
I don't even think there's a way you can reword this to make it a viable question. If the question is, if it was reworded into what is this character, what is the ranking he is consistently called, or what is the title he's addressed at? It's like, what is the title he's addressed as is the only thing that you can definitively say. It's just that's like he titled like saying Doctor or Mr. or Mrs. Sure, but calling him sergeant in that regard is a title, but it is not a rank. But again, when it's a hyper specific, I mean, first off, whatever his rank is in this is a hyper-specific detail in and of itself that's barely, in the movie you have to pay super specific attention to. And the fact that, again, it's an inaccurate, it's an inaccurate answer. This just isn't the type of question that should be in the game. Again, any question without a verifiable, definitive answer shouldn't be in the game.
Yes, it's it's just kind of it's definitely kind of a muddy situation overall for sure. Yeah, but
yeah, I can definitely see where it's frustrating on the competitor side of it, because you have your specific. I can see where someone would have their specific routes for studying and double checking, and then coming across this information and realizing that it something doesn't match up, and that's interesting to hear from that. I completely agree with everything that you're saying. I still cannot remember what the question was that I was going to ask, but I will take a second to plug a certain point of view they're having on Abby Friel and PJ Campbell tomorrow. Question writers for the Schmodown. So definitely tune into that, because that's going to be really interesting to watch, because the question writers have been under the scope for a little while, and that's really interesting.
Well, we specifically talked about that the last time I was on the show about certain questions.
Yes, that is true.
But the other thing, though, just in terms of this question itself, while this question, again, I'll stand by the statement that this question just never should have even been asked, because there's no definitive answer to it. This isn't something that came up during the game at all. This is something that people, started talking about after the game was over. And so, had it look, let's look at the likeliest thing. This is Catherine Bigelow was a category that Ethan clearly studied up on and was very familiar with. So if this question had gotten thrown out, Ethan would have been given another Catherine Bigelow question, and he probably would have known the answer. So the fact, so this isn't one that we're looking at as, it ruined the game. It puts a blemish on the game, as much as it's the question, I know they're striving to be, they're striving for perfection, as perfect as they can get to be, the question writers are, but it's this is the type of thing that needs to be weeded out, I mean, again, if you especially questions where if a player looks at two different sites for what they're studying and can get two different answers, that should not be in the game. Because some players use Wikipedia for studying, and some players use IMDb for studying, or watch the credits of the film. I wonder. I'm curious to see what he's listed as in the credits of the film itself, because IMDb typically gets their credits from the film itself, and IMDb lists him as a credited character, lists him as Staff Sergeant. So.
Yeah, there's a difference between what your actual rank is and what you're called. It's moot point. It wasn't challenged. It doesn't really matter all that much anymore. And so, also Rocha he recognized maybe it could have been challenged, but it was challengeable for sure, but it would have had mattered. We don't know, because hypothetically, what would have been the outcome because they would have had to, talk to PJ or whoever it may be. And,
I think if you look at the online sites, I mean, it's possible that, there's no way he gets credit for the answer if you do the research. So either the question gets thrown out, or either the question gets thrown out, or it gets marked as wrong. But again, that's only if we'd known to challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, didn't happen, so it's kind of moot point nowadays.
Yeah. Say la vie. That's what you got. That's what you got the Facebook comment section for, because they will definitely make sure to point out when something was missing in a match. Someone got a question wrong, or this question wasn't valid. Facebook comments are always really quick to point that out.
Yeah.
So we will bring it back up.
All right, Ethan, you are sporting a perfect round so far, 6 points, and that puts you 6 points ahead of your competitor, John the Outlaw Rocha. To pad that by 2 more points, after appearing
I
in
like
Alien,
John's mask right there by his microphone.
Hooker, the leader,
yeah, no, it's
Vampire
fantastic.
in 1987's
Near
Dark.
Lance Henriksen.
The great Lance Henriksen and Christian. That's a perfect.
It's very clear that Ethan
three.
studied this category very well.
15-7.
So
15-7.
He admitted it. Yeah, he's like,
Erwin.
let's go with the
perfect
Frank.
round there in round number 2. We're going to remove Ethan. We're going to bring back Gucci here. We got 60 seconds to talk to John. Bobby.
Take it off.
Sorry, I can
Oh,
barely
wait,
hear you.
hold on.
Kind of cutting out just a bit.
What are we gonna do about it? It hasn't happened before.
We can go perfect as well.
Let's see. Let's see.
All right, so you ready for the wheel? All right, ready for the first spin? Here it is.
Justine, that's a good looking wheel. That's a very attractive wheel for sure.
Look, I give the digital wheel a lot of shit a lot of the time, but that wheel does look good.
All right.
And I'm really glad that they really did figure it out. For as much they really did figure out the digital wheel, and it's worked out so well this season. So I'm really glad about that. We don't have to. Oh no! Wait, I forgot. Schmominati's totally real.
All right.
All right. Let's get
Christian,
it.
can you clarify? Is this the 1990s?
It is the 1990s. 1990s. Not the 1990s.
I love that
All right, so we're going to remove.
Mark
We're gonna
Shots
remove
fired.
Both of them.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
drive to your house. Right
We're
now.
gonna try to bring back Craig in right now.
Get in the car.
what were the shots fired? What was that?
Oh,
So here is the
Hamilton, Pat Hamilton, he said, and I quote, and I just want to clarify the 1990s,
All right,
right?
here we go.
Oh yeah.
Johnny,
Oh,
you ready?
don't worry.
Here it is.
That's Ellis's job.
Frank Darabont
Yeah.
directed
Now,
Tom
can we
Hanks
pause this
in
real
which
quick?
1999 drama?
So one thing I want to say, just coming into here, so Rocha lands on 1990s, and this was coming into this. I mean, clearly, look, Ethan just got a perfect second round. So in order to keep pace with him, Rocha needs to get a perfect second round here too, and a lot of what Rocha and I went over just happened to be 90s. We went over a lot of things, but we definitely over the past few weeks before this talked a lot about movies in the 1990s. So I knew that he was in a good mind space. He's in a good place in his mind for these questions, and it I felt confident for him, and it's clear that he felt confident himself.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Alex and I always accidentally say the same thing at the same time at least once every stream.
Minimum.
I think it's on purpose.
Yeah. We're actually twins. So
Well, even earlier,
Yeah,
like
after the same
before we
person.
even started recording, someone just said, talked about Frozen, and it wasn't even related to the movie or anything. And on time, at the exact same time, we both said, "Let it go."
right on.
It was just like
It's very on
like,
brand.
it's perfect, Danielle. That's why you're my boo.
That's your movie, baby. Yes. Okay. We'll get right back into this Rocha match and not this Alex and Danielle love fest. That always goes on inside of my head anytime the matches are going. It's always the Jeopardy song.
Decade categories, I feel like, can be real hit and miss because decades usually are more general, meaning in theory they're more a little bit more surface questions as well, versus something like Catherine Bigelow where it's much more plot based,
Who plays
where
the
they
lead and title
deeper
character of
digs
the
in theory.
1993 dramedy Dave?
Who plays the lead? Kevin Kline.
That is correct. Question 3. In which 1995 film finds human civilization having been relegated to living on ramshackle floating communities known as atolls?
What a great
What a
movie.
world.
What a
Correct.
wonderful.
Last
I love that
question here.
movie. I don't care what anyone
I've never seen it.
says. You should do that on video.
Jean-Claude Van Damme plays
On Cinema
Coen
Bias?
Brothers
Yeah.
in which 1991
It's a fun one.
Oh,
It's even
God.
better than the movie is the ride they have at Universal Studios. It's not a
Double
ride;
Impact?
it's a show. They do a show
That's
for it.
correct for 2 points. All right, so
Nice. Did not know
it is a double
Yeah.
15-15 double perfect round for the both of them. Unbelievable here. As
We said this was going to happen.
it is a
double perf. Double perf.
perfect
Did
round.
not
The
expect anything
90s
less from
was
either of
for
them.
Rocha what Catherine Bigelow was for
Fantastic.
Ethan Erwin.
Couldn't
And
have been
now we
happier
get
at this
to
point.
round
Couldn't have been
number
prouder.
3. Unbelievable stuff
Good
here,
setting.
Mark. The rules, please.
It's like a matchup between Chad and Alex, the two Double impact, Kristen. And in round number
I really
three,
like Sam Levine. However, he's wearing a Cubs t-shirt, so I can't respect that. So.
Alex, you're a Cardinals fan, correct?
Girl, my grandpa was a Cardinal, so how dare you? Obviously.
Obviously, yes.
Settle on your lucky numbers. That's going to correspond to a movie trivia Schmodown category full of tough questions. Your first query.
Craig, do you have a number picking strategy?
I think we will make it that.
Is there a strategy?
Is there
any strategy? Is there a strategy in general?
Who's picking their number?
Oh, I think he's frozen, actually.
John
Oh,
Rocha
nope.
is the higher ranked at the moment. So, John?
9, 15, and 16.
9, 15, 16 for John. 9, 15, and 16 for John. And for Ethan?
I'll do 17, 1, and 7.
17, 1, and 7 for Ethan. Okay, because John will go second, then Gucci, you would talk to John for 60 seconds here starting now.
John,
What's up, brother?
cool, calm, and collective. Finstock Exchange way.
Yep.
Put them away. Let's go home.
Let's have some fun.
I think we're looking for collected, but that's fine.
Keep it down.
I love that.
He has to have a sign to tell him what his name is behind him. I mean, I get it.
Okay, let's be honest.
Who's the one with a little play doll of himself behind him? Keep it down over there.
There it is. All right, there's some heat.
Rocha, Ethan, Gucci.
You have.
I mean, at least have a.
Everyone except Sam has a picture or their name on around them. So it's kind of funny when they brought it to my attention.
It's actually true.
Like Rocha does, Gucci does, Ethan does, Christian. His face is literally on a
It's
poster.
funny that it does actually say 90s.
Ellis usually has his name, M.E.,
But it doesn't
like on the
matter. It
background.
doesn't matter
No, it
because
really doesn't.
that's like 10 points.
That's what we call cheaters.
Well, I'm getting some audio problems. Let me try.
No, I
Looks
feel
like my
really good about
computer
it.
internet's
You should
up and
feel
running
great.
again, so I'm going to try to get back
You know,
into
John has
that.
a history of missing his
Hopefully
final
that'll
win,
have
so
better
no
audio.
pressure on him for that.
Fingers crossed.
Very funny.
But,
All right, is that everything? Okay.
yeah, I
I'll
think
see you
we're
on the other
good.
side.
I mean, what
Let's do
else
it.
can I say?
All right, drop out.
All right,
out the
so
managers
drop me
as
out of
there's definitely
this.
shots being thrown here in the third round. All right, so we start.
There you
with
go.
Ethan Erwin.
Hello.
We start
Let's
with
see if this
Ethan
works.
Erwin. Mark, would you do the honors there with Ethan?
Happy to, Christian. Ethan, for your 2-point question, you selected what number?
17.
17. And Doug Williams' number?
I don't know if you had a chance to hear us earlier, Craig, but do you have a strategy for picking numbers, or is there in general a strategy for picking numbers?
Disney animated film follows a dangerous
I don't particularly have one. The only strategy I could say is change it up.
with a young girl on Earth.
If you keep the same,
Christian?
if you keep the same numbers every time, there's a chance that they could use it against you. However, there's no evidence that's ever happened. But you know, the numbers Ethan picked here are the numbers that he normally picks, and they are 3 categories that he's historically bad at. So, you know, maybe that played against him. Maybe it was random. Who knows?
Wendell Crumb in 2017's
Sure.
Split. Five, 4, 3, 2.
James McAvoy.
Yes, for 2 more points. John Rocha ties it up, throws it back to Ethan now. Ethan needs to hit his 3-pointer. Category 1. Mark, category 1.
Yes, he did, Christian. He went with number 1. And Ethan, I'm not sure how you feel about your knowledge in the realm of dance movies.
We'll find out together.
Dance movies.
Be fun.
Dance,
Your question for
dance.
3 points. And
I was really disappointed by the question.
Dance.
I'm sorry, Craig, say that again.
Oh, I said I was really disappointed by this
in
question
the classic movies Top Hat, Swing Time, and Shall We Dance.
because you didn't even need to.
Ginger
You don't even need to list the titles of the films. If you just ask who starred opposite Fred Astaire in a dance movie, the answer is Ginger Rogers. You know, it's like, you know, I was watching at home, and as soon as they said who starred opposite Fred Astaire in the film, I was like, well, it's Ginger Rogers, clearly.
John, back to 90s movies. 90s movies.
Well, she's not a very well-known actress. I mean, she is, but I mean, like,
Here it is.
I guess. I've never heard of her.
You know, Oh, you're so young.
Which
I like to gauge
1995 film
common
stars
knowledge on
Antonio
what my mom
Banderas
knows, because my
with
mom is not very
Selma
well versed
Hayek?
in anything. If I said the name Ginger Rogers to my mom, she would know who it
3 more
was.
points.
She would never
We
be
find
able to tell
ourselves
you any of
tied
those
up
movies.
here,
I didn't
20,
know that dance
20,
question, and it
20,
didn't just
and
readily occur to me
to
to
the
think
5
Ginger
point
Rogers
This
for
is
it, even
already
though
more
I
than last
know
time than you
that.
got last time we
Yeah.
played.
Yeah.
So
But so her name is so associated with Fred Astaire that
Erwin, and he
the
has
the Weezer song Buddy
number
Holly.
7.
Ooh,
She does, Christian.
Yeah. So the original lyrics of that song were supposed to be, "Ooh you dance just like Ginger Rogers." Wait, no, wait, "Ooh you look just like Ginger Rogers." And I dance like Fred Astaire. Those were the original lyrics to the song.
Nice.
Oh, I never made the connection.
I like that.
That never even occurred to me. Wow.
Animated Disney film
There you
from
go.
2000 will you find the
just like
line?
I always associate with that song with Mary Tyler Moore,
yeah,
but
that's like Fred Astaire.
Trampoline.
I like it. I don't care what they say about us anyway.
I don't care about that.
Woo!
5, 4, 3.
repeat the question.
First one.
Have to do that. It's the world of Disney, and your question for 5
And
points.
again, and just to say, I'm not attacking the question right and saying that shouldn't have been a 3-point question. I'm just saying,
The last
you know,
we did not order
as someone who's
trampoline.
actively rooting for Rocha to win, when I hear that question, I'm pretty
Order a
confident that he
giant
would know the answer, and he did know the answer. So,
Mhm.
there you
Yeah.
go. This question, though, I
5,
felt pretty confident he was
4,
going to get the answer,
3.
and he did not.
Second one.
Yeah.
And that
Category is
as
Disney.
soon as they said what
What
category he was
animated
going to get for his
Disney
within the
film
category
The
Disney
last
for his
time
5-pointer,
we
I
did not order
literally
a
like
giant
yelled
trampoline.
in my room. I was like, "Yes!" Well, technically I cursed too. I was like, "Fuck yeah!" But you know, and it, you know, Ethan is one that has historically not been good at Disney movies.
5,
Mm-hmm.
4,
Yep.
3,
Repeat.
2. Last one.
Wise use of the
Disney?
JT rules here.
What animated Disney film?
There's a lot. I remember right away on Twitter, like so many people were saying how did I not get this question?
I didn't get it.
Even a lot of people that are huge Disney animated fans, they were
like,
like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't know it." Rachel Silvestrini, she said she only got it in the very last second.
All right. So
And she's big. She's huge on Disney. So.
Yeah, and I've seen that movie a bunch of times. It never came to my brain. It just
however,
didn't
if
come.
he misses it,
Yeah.
we go
And
to sudden death.
for me, so I'm actually pretty good at animated films, but when I was going through and thinking of films that came out in that decade, I actually breezed right past Emperor's New Groove when I was going over because there's another Disney film that came out in 2000, and so I was like, okay, 2000 Dinosaur, and I just like, you know, so I didn't even consider Emperor's New Groove when I was thinking through it.
After chasing down
not
a
kidding.
pursuit criminal,
But you know, when you know, before matches, I'll get, you know, I'm a little more astute.
There you go. It's a good movie.
This one here, this is so. This is a very hard question. I am not ashamed to admit that I didn't have the answer at the moment. And I you know, I think somebody said it on another show, and I'm not sure how they knew it, but I didn't know that. Yeah, I can't remember what show I was watching, but somebody taled about it either in a match or in a show that I didn't know this answer, and I couldn't remember how they knew that. I was like, how did they know I didn't know the answer to this? At any rate, I had rewatched the film during my IG studying, and you know there had been other 5-point level questions that I'd been talking about with people that I knew the answers to because of my rewatch, but this is not one.
Yeah.
And part of that,
you lost me.
and
It was knock your punk ass down. We're going to sudden death.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Well, not only is that hard, like that is hard because you need. There's no way to logically deduce that that's the answer if you haven't seen the film, because the initials of what he says are KYPAD, and they're asking, and he says that NYPD stands for this KYPAD. So it's you know, it's you either have seen the movie and know it. There's no way to logically deduce that is the answer.
And that's what makes that question, in my personal opinion, one of the best, absolute best 5-point questions I have ever seen asked inside of the Schmodown, because you have a lot of people know that 5-point questions are usually plot-based questions, and that is definitely something that you have to watch the movie to know that answer. And because it's that tricky that you can't deductively find the answer without having seen the movie, is why I loved that question. So that's just my opinion coming from a fan.
It's really difficult for sure.
Yeah, my opinion though is I actually dislike those kinds of questions because, and again, I'm not saying that it's fair. It's perfectly valid and perfect. Definitely a 5-pointer, but it's that and there's definitely some people, they watch the movie and that sticks with them. I was talking to some fellow competitors who like, oh yeah, I knew it immediately, but. I feel like when the answer to a question is a piece of minutia from a film that's that small and not really important, it takes away from the fun of the trivia of the game. Like it's not important to the plot of the movie. It's not, it's literally trivial, and so I prefer things even when they're like, when they're smaller things, I prefer questions. When that are, I don't know, more germane. And like I've definitely heard some 5-point questions where I said, oh, well, this is, I don't want to use the term too easy, but like I'll hear it say, this is, more gettable than I would prefer a 5-point question to be. But again, it's almost like the strike zone for an individual batter. It's like, it varies by the batter of what you can get and whatnot. But
yeah.
And I think it's fair because that's the whole design of the game, is that it's random, and sometimes it is plot based and sometimes it is not plot based. And I think there's actually about an even number of ones that are plot based versus non plot based in the 5-pointers. So it's that's why while there's no real great strategy for picking your numbers, it's like it's the luck of the draw. There's a huge luck component of this game. It's not it's not enough to just be great at trivia. You also have to be lucky, and that's the way the game is designed. And I think that's what makes the game great. And this kind of adds to the whole any given Sunday part of the game. It's like even though the best players will win 9 out of 10 times against a weaker opponent. Sometimes that weaker opponent gets the TKO, just like the match of when Andrew Guy TKO'd Dan Murrell. I mean, I don't think there's a single player you can talk to a single fan that you'll talk to that thinks that Andrew Guy is a better player than Dan Murrell. Maybe not even the Action Army. I mean, maybe there are. I don't know. But Dan Murrell is considered the consensus greatest player of all time. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Andrew Guy can get a TKO against Dan Murrell is one of the great things about this game. That's that any given Sunday aspect to it.
But also during that match in particular, Guy just played a better game overall. But there is, I agree, totally a lot of luck involved in particular.
I mean, Guy played a great game and got some really good pulls, but the luck that he got questions that he knew the answers to, and that Dan got questions he didn't know the answers to.
That's true.
So I mean, and again, he also did well to in terms of strategy wise to get under Dan's skin. Well, that doesn't make him a better player than Dan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to that match in particular, it was just like it's definitely the biggest upsets in Schmodown history for sure. Mm-hmm. But also at the same time, we know for a fact an upset like that probably will never happen again, because Schmodown was at a point in transition where competitors were coming back into Schmodown with this, where Schmodown was a whole new thing, where character was more than before, storyline, but also competitors started studying for the first time and actively started really, giving into it as much as they did on this level. So versus before, it's like you can casually know a lot of stuff and still do really well, but you can't do that now. That's a very different conversation. I mean, you probably can to a certain extent, but you can't be a great competitor.
Yeah. Well, no, here's the thing. You can't Ethan's not lying when he says that he typically doesn't say. Ethan won the championship during that time without being a studying competitor. So you can, but you have a better shot by studying. And, and this, you're absolutely 100% right that was the transition time in that, in that Andrew Guy was playing the game in a much different way than Dan had been used to play. Excuse me. The Trulies are making me a little.
The Trulies. What flavor is that, by the way?
This is mango lemonade.
Ooh.
This episode of Call to Action is brought to you by Truly Mango Lemonade. But no, you're 100% correct in that Dan came into that match not prepared for what Guy was going to bring him, and Guy TKO'd him, and but to say an upset like that could never happen again, I beg to differ. I mean, look, I think, was that the same year that Late to the Party upset Critically Acclaimed in the teams tournament, or was that a different year?
No, that was
before, I think.
Yeah, that was before, for sure. But thing is, the difference is that Late to the Party knew what they were getting themselves into. As active fans, they were reacting and playing along all the time. Dan Murrell had no idea going into it. Christian told him behind the scenes, hey, after you win this, I already got the storylines and everything ready to go for when you win this. He had no plan for ready to go for hypothetically if Guy won. Then he even said on the record, that was a match where I realized as a commissioner, I need to come up with both plans just in case, no matter how big of an upset it could be.
Yeah, and I've heard Christian talk about other matches where they were similar, that he thought, was positioning storylines based on specifically my Finstock Exchange faction mate Cody Hall in that match against Lana Harris, whereas Christian had been planning on doing a storyline with Cody and the other Wangers being the students to the professor, but then Cody came out and got that perfect first round and really just while he didn't win the match, really took Lon to the to the wire. And one of the things I love about this game and the way that the stories feed into it is the stories are influenced by the match results and not the other way around. And so because Cody showed so well against Lon, Christian couldn't move forward with the storyline he wanted to do with them, and so he had to make other plans.
Yeah. So speaking of upsets, we're going to go ahead and finish the rest of this match.
Is it an upset?
Is it an upset? That's the right upset. Is it an upset? So
well, here's the thing. I'll say this. I was upset.
Yeah.
I wasn't upset, but I was mega surprised. But we'll go into that later, I suppose.
Yeah.
I have thoughts and opinions and emotions about what goes on next. So please continue.
Yes.
They do come in threes for sure.
There you go, Alex.
Yes,
I'll let you.
Mark. So let us bring back.
Well, that's exciting.
Let us bring back.
I like all of these little tags now that they have. Very fun.
Death. Mark, how does it go?
For everyone keeping score at home, that's 2 Van Damme movie references now. In sudden death, it's going to work a lot like round number 1, except obviously the stakes are much higher. A question will be asked to the field. Both Ethan and John, once they hear the question, are going to have 15 seconds.
When it comes to sudden death, they can be as hard or as easy, right?
No, it can be any level of difficulty.
Any level. It could be 1 pointer or 5 pointers, hypothetically.
Exactly.
There's no penalty for missing a question.
And they don't give you the category either,
Why is it called the sudden death?
They do not.
Simple. If you both get the question right, we move on
But
to ask another question under the same rule.
at this point, we knew that this was going to be
ask another question.
This could go either way.
Yeah.
It's who blinks first. And by the way, you got 2 great competitors like this, and while the questions could be like round 1, the round 1 questions, Ethan got the first miss. So crossing my fingers and hoping that we get that again here. But
you have one more. Great. And same thing, John. You have 1 repeat. Same thing we're going to do here. So, Sam, you got 60 seconds to talk to Ethan starting now.
Dude, that was amazing that you got 3 categories that for most players are game stoppers, and you crushed those first 2. That last one was impossible. So don't lose any sleep over that.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, you got this. You were built for sudden death. You were built for Iron Man matches. So you got this. I have all the confidence in you. You played a hell of a game, man. Let's close it out.
Thank you.
All right.
Craig, do you
and
think you
now
would do
Gucci's
well as a
got
manager?
starting now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm nowhere near the point. Until they start letting people be player coaches, I'm nowhere near the point of transitioning to being a manager.
So we are going to start. Thank you guys. We're going to drop you out here, and let's drop out Gucci. Let's drop out Cam. All right, gentlemen, are you ready? Ethan, John, are you ready?
Yeah, let's get it.
Ethan, are you ready?
Continue to always be closing.
All right, here we go.
Always be closing.
Question number
Yeah,
one.
Ethan loves that line from Glengarry.
Who starred in the title role
Never
in
seen
Stanley
it.
Kubrick's Spartacus?
I'm Spartacus.
Yep, we all are, aren't we?
But it means a little bit more in this round.
I saw, speaking of Kubrick and Kirk Douglas, I just saw the movie Paths of Glory for the first time.
Down, please.
What did you think?
That hit me.
Oh, I bet it did.
Yes, it did.
That's a good
Kirk
movie.
Douglas.
That is correct. All right.
Have you seen Full Metal Jacket?
You got it.
I'm sorry?
You got it.
Have you
if you
seen
want.
Full Metal Jacket?
No.
Yeah, let's do it.
I haven't seen that. Seen Apocalypse Now. There's a lot of war movies, especially I haven't seen.
Your next query.
I didn't watch Saving Private Ryan until like
15
last
seconds for
year.
the answer.
There was a good one I
What
just recently watched, A
2009
Bridge
film
Too Far.
Featured the film debut
Really,
of Chris Hemsworth.
really powerful scenes with James Caan in it that I really loved.
I love James Caan. I really do. He's very underrated as an actor. I'm surprised he's only been nominated like once for an Oscar or something. Like once or twice. Like Godfather, maybe something else.
Ethan, repeat. Go ahead.
It's me.
Oh, Rocha, repeat. Okay.
That is insulting.
Yeah, Ethan is a Star Wars, a Star Trek aficionado, so I knew he knew this
Featured the film debut
immediately.
of Chris Hemsworth.
And this is the point where I realized that Rocha's, Rocha's not in the right frame of mind, and that we're, a little worried at this point that it took him this long to get Chris Hemsworth, and he got it. But this is a
Star Trek.
And John?
I didn't know it, to be honest. I was like, I remember him kind of being in it, but I don't remember it being his first big movie. I had no idea.
His first movie was his first movie, his first film ever.
Well, he did like TV stuff and
that's not, he did TV. This is his first film.
Period.
He got yes. Period. That's what the question was. That was his film debut. He got Thor largely based on how well received he was in the Star Trek film.
Wham bam.
Yeah. Like when they cast him in Thor, they're like, yeah, the guy that was George Kirk. Like Star Trek came out in 2009, and then Mr.
I wrote it, but
sorry.
I don't know if you can make it out. It just came at the last minute. Sidney Pollack.
So
I don't know if you can make it out.
I mean, I can't see it. You got to
I
put it right up to the
I can't make that, to be honest.
So we pause it here real quick.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is something we got.
Pause it here real quick. So, no, keep it up on the screen though.
Okay.
Oh, you know what's interesting? I didn't realize. For some reason, I thought Christian wasn't wearing his glasses. Wow. In my mind, Christian hadn't been wearing his glasses. But it's interesting because I think, for me, what Rocha's biggest problem was that he didn't have confidence in his own legibility. Because to me, watching this from home, I have a very large TV, and I thought that this said legibly enough Sid Pollock, and he doesn't need to say Sidney, it only needs to say Sid. They accept Tom for Thomas all the time, they accept Bill for William all the time. It's clear precedent, and Sid is an acceptable name for Sidney. Now, if they want to start making it so that you can't do those things, that we have to say William H. Macy instead of Bill Macy, or Robert De Niro instead of Bobby De Niro, like some people like to write down, let's make that change. But we haven't made that change yet, so Sid Pollock is correct here. And the fact that Christian, is unilaterally making this decision without the benefit of, give us a full screen to review. This match, this point here is so important. Give it, give it the actual due diligence. Have the three three judges look at it, because I'll say offline that I've spoken with one person that would have very likely been involved in this, and he agreed that it was legible as Sid Pollock, one of the three judges.
So I will say, when I first watched this, I watched it on my TV as well. And I agree with you, Craig. When I watched it on my TV, it did look a lot more legible than what I see on this screen right now.
Yes.
So, because I very much remember thinking it does kind of look like Sid, like I can see the S, but in this one, for whatever reason, I don't see the S, and all of that.
And part of it's just the quality is a little bit lower when we're watching it via StreamYards. And by the way, this is what they're using to run the match. Like, are we on StreamYards? Yes, StreamYards. Yeah. They run the matches through StreamYard. So this is the quality that they're seeing. And if they had at least, and here's the thing, at the very least, this should have been challenged, and this should have been blown up to full screen, and they should have had all three judges look at it and say, is that legible? Because, I see the S, the Y, the D, the P, the O, two L's, an A, and a K. And it's, is it like, this isn't like the Jane Fonda where it's, just a squiggle. These, the letters are there. It's horrible handwriting. But, if we go back and rewatch this match, half the time Ethan puts his board up, you can't even see what letters he's written because, and it's no fault to Ethan, but just because of the distance, we're all doing this for the first time from home. He just put it up to the camera, and you don't know if you're getting the full words on or if there's a glare, and it's like, it's hard. This is an imperfect scenario. We're trying to do it the best we can. But something with this level of importance shouldn't have been placed in one judge's hand. We should have had three judges. We should have had a challenge and had three judges review it. And I don't know for a fact that we would have gotten two of the three judges to say it was legible, but I feel confident that at least one of the three judges was going to say it was legible. And for me, watching it at home, and again, if we'd had the benefit of getting it blown up to the full screen like they're able to do and like they often do, like in the interviews and whatnot, we would have had that. The fact that, like, and this isn't, again, I'd like to point out, Rocha knew the correct answer. He said the correct answer first, and he's got the correct answer written down on his page. And it's a question of legibility. Now, again, he shot himself in the foot by prepping this before he even showed it. He's like, I don't know if it's legible. I don't know if it's legible. And he also has the misfortune of being someone who has a history. He has the Jane Fonda history. This is part of his legacy in the game, that him squiggling down and claiming that it's legible is part of his history. But in this specific instance, this is much different than the Jane Fonda.
Yeah, no, I agree. Alex, I really want to know.
I don't know if Alex is frozen or she's just not speaking right now.
Oh, I'm just not talking. I was like, yeah, I was listening. That's all. I can't. I don't see Sydney Pollock. I don't.
It's not Sydney. It's Sid.
I don't even see Sid. I don't see that person.
The first squiggle is an S. The Y is very legible. And the third which one don't you see, out of curiosity?
I only see. It looks like it doesn't even look like an S. It looks like almost a Q to me.
Almost a Q. I've heard people say it's an R, but I think it's more.
I was like, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's regardless. I can't read it, and it looks like.
But again, you're not viewing it as blown up as it could be. You're viewing it small on a StreamYard.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I was about to say. I totally understand. If they had kept it, if they said totally fine, Sid Pollock, I would have thought nothing of it. I just can't read it, and I recognize I can't read it because there's 1,000,001 reasons why, and it has nothing to do with John. Maybe hypothetically, he could have written out in full Sydney Pollock, and I just wouldn't be able to read it because we're going through StreamYard. It's fuzzy sometimes, and it breaks up. I recognize that. I would have, also, I would have not challenged it.
In a week, I will be getting my internet fixed, so fingers crossed on that.
Yeah, it's like a really sticky situation, and it's unfortunate we had to go through this route. But I absolutely recognize that everyone is doing their best in order to obviously not only give us the best, matches and content possible, but also working with what they have, such as this. It's so actively difficult. It's rough. But let's just say it's not a tiff against you or John. I just can't read it.
And I think that's fair, but I also think that again, it should have been given more scrutiny in the moment. Because again, I think in this, I think it's fair to, like I said, I had, and I know the reason Gucci didn't challenge it, my understanding at least, was that, from Gucci's point of view, he was also watching it on a much smaller screen and didn't quite make it out. And again, Rocha prepped them with saying, I don't think it's legible, or I don't know if you can read. Like, he's shooting himself in the foot by preparing them to see it as illegible. So if you don't, he is putting them in the mind frame of, you're not going to be able to read this. So number one, don't do that. In anything you ever do not set yourself up for failure. And that was a huge, Rocha did a lot of great things this match. And I think part of this was his confidence was shook. And he was, he talked about that on backstage, that he was not in the best place for this. But again, when you were saying earlier about things you don't want to say, he didn't want to, we're doing these online matches. Ethan just got a pep talk from Sam. Rocha didn't want to, be there telling Dagnino, hey, I'm, my confidence is shook. Talk me up. You can't it's like, getting blood to a shark. You can't do that. And it's unfortunate that this is how the game ends. On a question that Rocha knows the answer to and says out loud the correct answer to. And, we didn't even used to have the rule that you had to have it both written down, completely legibly and whatnot. That's the Freddie Prinze Jr. rule. They specifically did that because something happened in a match that was questionable, and, it used to be, if you go back to, I was actually earlier today watching Free for All 3, and Jonathan Harris wrote down Bigelow without the Catherine in front of it. And he says Catherine Bigelow, and Bibiani tries to call him out on it. And Christian says, no, he went first, so it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was Free for All 3 in 2019. So the fact that was acceptable then, but Rocha saying Sidney Pollock here before anyone else has a chance to answer, and showing this wasn't, it's not something that has been 100% consistently applied, and it's something that he it worked against him. I feel like if he'd been more confident and hadn't prefaced it by saying you're not going to be able to read this, and had he just said the answer, flashed the page, and put it down, I think maybe he gets the point without them even challenging. But we'll see. Yeah. I mean, we won't see. We'll never know. It is frustrating that at the end of the day, it is frustrating that he clearly knew the answer and said the correct answer, and it's frustrating that he loses a game on a question that he knew the answer to.
Yeah, that's definitely the frustrating part about it. I can definitely see it from a player standpoint, having gone back and knowing that those were the rules. From my understanding, I didn't know that rule had changed. I still thought that if you went first and said it, you would still get the point for that. And I don't play, so I don't keep up with the rules or anything like that. I only have helped run a YouTube channel for it, but still, so that's, I don't know what else we can say about this Sidney Pollock answer. I agree with a lot of what's going on inside of the chat. A lot of the chat is saying that it's not legible, certain letters that they're seeing and stuff like that. I think what's important in this conversation that we're having right now is understanding how far Craig is going to go to bat for his players or for his faction mates and stuff like that. Hearing that support and listening to him explain why he supports John Rocha in this decision, I absolutely love that.
You guys are frozen again. Just a heads up.
No problem. No problem.
But I was like, and to me, more importantly, is it's there are lessons to be taken away from this. And one of the big lessons that John took away, even though this was a loss for John, he, in the aftermath of this, he's able to look back and say, I played well enough that I could beat Ethan Erwin. He's looking, it's taken him a minute to really process the fact that, he lost a game that he played really well. But he's coming out of this realizing that at least in my opinion, he's coming out of this realizing that he's got a totally different gear that the Schmodown has never seen before, and he's ready to. He is hungrier than ever. He and Merle are so ready to defend those team belts. Rocha is getting ready to make his decision about the singles tournament, but more than anything, he knows that he's got so much left in the tank.
Yeah, absolutely. It really kind of speaks to the level of, not only competition, from Rocha, but also from Ethan. This match, I do think that Ethan recognizes he barely got away with this win. The stars had to align just right in order
he had to get spinner's choice.
Yeah,
and he had to, he got lucky. And here's the thing: if Rocha we talked about the strategy, had Rocha used that JTE rule in round 1 and used that to get himself the correct answer for that horror, we wouldn't even be in sudden death. He would have won the game already.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Absolutely. But this also comes back to, even if you are the first one to say it, to, be able to answer it, going back to yesterday, with going into like one of the questions, spoilers for yesterday's match. But the match yesterday with Lon, he was the first one to answer Mulan, but he's like, oh, I thought it was like the bonus question or something. So he's like, obviously it's Mulan, but he didn't even think about writing it because he wasn't really paying attention. He thought it was a bonus question, so it doesn't really apply to him. So he didn't feel like he had to write it down, but he did. He was the first person to answer, so obviously he knew it. So
yeah, for me, if I had been his manager there, I would have challenged it on the basis that the announcers, unlike they do in most matches, had not been saying what number question they were on. I only realized I had to do the mental math before the question was asked. It's like, okay, they're at 12-12. I know that Lon's missed 2 questions, that Oyama hasn't missed yet, so that means it has to be on question 8 now because that'd be 7 and 5. I'm having to do freaking algebra to figure out what question they're on. Like, they should be saying the numbers like they always do. And the fact that they didn't say those numbers, I think would have given, Winston grounds to challenge that on. He chose not to. It's his prerogative. But, it was, again, in the moment, I felt like that because I'm sitting here watching and I'm trying to figure out what question they're on. And the people I was watching with also thought it was in the bonus already. So it was, again, Christian and Ellis do, a lot. They've been having to do a lot of these matches, and I'm not trying to unfairly criticize them, and I'm not trying to unfairly criticize Winston. I just feel like I would have thrown a challenge on that, but at the end of the day, they knew that. They played the game they wanted to play the game. They knew how they wanted to play. They did that. This is in reaction to that. So I'll leave that at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. Not kidding.
Kidding. So do we want to continue to watch anything else from the rest of this match? Alex, Craig?
I don't know if there's anything else to talk about. If people have questions about it, I feel like I've given, I feel like I've given the insights I have to offer on it. Unless people have anything else, it's interesting. I'm just now that I'm back on my computer instead of on the phone, I'm taking a look at some of the things in the chat going. I think it's interesting all the different all the different things people are going on about. I love that there's a healthy debate in the chat, but
when it comes to, like we kind of mentioned, like Craig also like answered earlier, the bonus questions, there was supposed to be a healthy mix of like first rounders, second, third round questions. So it can really be as easy or as hard as they want it to be. That's the point. It's sudden death.
Oh no, there's definitely definitely. I feel like the longest sudden death game we ever saw was the Mara Knopic versus Rachel Cushing match, and part of the reason why that sudden death was so great is they they kept it sounded like they got every single question right throughout that sudden death. They kept getting questions that were super hard, and they would both miss some of the super hard questions.
Yeah.
And so it was, but it's fair because they're both getting the same questions,
Yeah, so it's a great match for sure.
All right. So, chat, if you have any questions for any of us, if you have any specific questions for Craig, go ahead and get them into the chat while y'all are doing that. Alex, how did you feel about this match overall? Ethan Erwin versus John Rocha. How do you feel?
Well, it's definitely, I don't want to say it's an emotional match. But the thing is, it was like one of those matches that upon, when you see it for the first time, it feels like a very straightforward match. However, upon rewatching it several times, you're like, there's a lot of nitpicky things you can really dissect about it. When it comes to strategy, or when it comes to the questions in particular, the intensity of the questions, or how not intense the questions are, and that's it, at the end of the day, when it's so subjective, it really is. I've heard a lot of people.
Answers to questions shouldn't be subjective. Oh, you're saying how hard the questions
sorry,
are.
No, I mean,
the difficulty level is subjective.
Yeah,
that is correct.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, so it's kind of, up in the air. It really is. But I am very glad to kind of rewatch this one. Definitely a lot more insight. I loved it.
Yeah, for sure. So, Craig, we got a lot of really good insight about how you feel about John Rocha and this match in general. So this wasn't not a lot of points for the faction going in here, but also points to a faction that you don't necessarily have to worry about. Unfortunately, the usual suspects are pretty low in the faction standings, but in the match before this, it was with Swag, and Swag did pull out some points, and I'm not going to spoil where Swag is in the faction standings now, but at this point after the match before this, Swag is slowly creeping up to the Finstock Exchange, and next week, yesterday for us, next week for anyone who is not a Patreon, it's 2 Swag matches with the possibility of Swag taking first place over the Finstock Exchange, which is the first time that the Finstock Exchange has been threatened like this. Do you feel any pressure going into next week or yesterday? It's a weird time loop with spoilers. Sorry, everyone.
I mean, and also with these, with the level of these matches, in terms of the spoiler and the advertising, because they need to be advertising for the next match before the first match is released on YouTube. Look, the spoilers are gonna, be out there from the governing bodies, from Christian,
Yeah.
You'll see, we'll see at some point early this week, there'll be a new, thing for about, listing what the undercard is going to be for this week's match. This week's match is going to be a doozy with Merle versus Erwin for the title. And I have a full faith that Dan Merle is going to take it home. Yeah. Exactly.
It's going to be weird for these next few weeks.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, sorry, the cat's trying to talk to me. No, this Erwin Merle match is going to be great, and we got the whole faction behind Merle, making sure he's ready for it, and it's going to be a knockdown, drag out fight, but Dan is 100% ready for it, and I think that this new speed round is going to work very well in Dan's favor.
Yeah,
because it's if we look at what happened in the match between Ben and Dan, Dan didn't even get a chance to answer a question. Dan knows the answers to a lot of movie trivia questions. And so the fact that he'll get a chance to answer these questions this time, it's going to be a lot more points he'll have a chance to score.
Does he really? He's good at the speed round? Crazy.
Huh?
Wow. Like all of his matches, he's always been like really fantastic. I mean, especially with the speed round. But going obviously with this round, Dan Roll, he's always been really great. So sorry. I mean, it's just like this is like a very good thing. I have every confidence that Dan is going to knock it out of the park when it comes to the speed round, though. It is like a whole different situation, but we've seen him like. He whips it out real fast, and he's so efficient with that.
Yeah.
I was like, this time, both of them though are good at it. So, when you have the old speed round, one person has a chance to dominate that round, like Bateman did against Merle in February, and so Ethan's not going to have a chance to dominate against him because they're both going to be able to get an even chance to answer both questions instead of only one of them getting to answer the questions.
Yep, absolutely. So from Ben Rayner in the chat, it's heartbreaking. I agree with the ruling, but it's hard talking about Rocha's loss. I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely agree.
If you work so hard for something for so long, it sucks. It's really rough. And he's been working like really aggressively, not only with Craig, obviously, but he's been working. He would talk about on the show, he would talk about how every single day he would dedicate 2 to 3 hours to studying in addition to watching new movies every single day. He's been doing that every single day for the past like 3-4 weeks. So it's rough. It is.
I'm trying to find anything in the chat. Well, this was fun. I had fun. Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to when my internet's fixed again, so I can actually do these without having to like nod through it and have these technical difficulties. So I appreciate everyone that's stuck through my Spectrum problems and stay on this. It's a 12:30 in the East Coast right now, so. I don't know if anyone hears it from on the East Coast, but y'all in the Central, it's 11:30, so it's getting late, and it's a fun spending Saturday night with y'all.
Of course, this was always fun. Big thank you to everyone in the chat. Before we head out of here, Craig, let us know where the people can find you.
The people can find me on Twitter at Barbarian Craig. They can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Mogwai417. Mogwai like the Gremlins, MOGWAI417. And I can also be found on Instagram at C as in Craig, F as in Frank, Gaynier, my last name, Gaynier. That's French for winning, CF Gaynier.
Gaynier. I think I've been pronouncing your last name wrong. I apologize about that. Gaynier.
It's okay. No, everyone pronounces it differently. I don't really care.
Alrighty, and Alex, my love, let us know what you got going on coming up on the channel and where we can find you.
Yeah, you can find me right here on Twitter. I'd really appreciate if you give me a follow right there. But yeah, I do Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do Mornings with the Outlaw, where we talk about movie news, all that fun stuff right before Sense, so it's a fun time. I also do Schmo Beats here with Call to Action every single Wednesday, so it's gonna be really fun times. Next week, we're actually gonna be having a Finstock Exchange themed episode, asking and debating a bunch of questions, focusing on the exchange. Arguably, the best, faction for sure. And also I host a show called Cinema Bias with Video Drew, a really great friend of ours. He's pretty amazing. We really dive into movies that one of us or both of us haven't seen, really kind of dissect them. There's a bunch of movies both of us have not seen, a lot of major ones. And so it's kind of fun to kind of really challenge each other to watch something outside our comfort zone. So
Yeah, it's a great show. It really is. It's a lot of fun to see them go back and forth with each other, especially when one has seen it and one has not seen it. It really is a great show. Good job on that, Alex. And you know me, it's your girl, Danny Joy. You can find me on Twitter at Danny Joy, DANIEEJOY. You can also find me here every Monday hosting Chill to Action with my favorite co-host, Mr. Paul Denuzio. On the Call to Action channel, we hang out with Schmodown competitors.
Whoa, Alex, did you just hear that?
Oh,
Danny just said that Paul's her favorite co-host.
it's a bit.
I don't blame her.
Okay, all right. I mean,
I can't deny it. I mean, like Paul's she runs. I don't co-host a show with her all that much. I don't like have a show specifically where we host each other.
We just hang out with each other every once in a while.
Out super often,
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
But
Kelsey in the chat. Someone pull that up.
I am, however, Drew's favorite co-host. I am her best co-host. So.
That's it, y'all. Thank you so much for everyone in the chat. Like this video, comment afterwards, subscribe to the channel if you have not. Also, next week, I know we played on the last show, but if you're tuning into this episode and not any other breakdown episode, next week, this coming Monday, we do have Mark and Draco coming on Chill to Action. So come in and hang out with that. And then in 2 weeks, we are celebrating Chill to Action's 50th episode, also / 1 year anniversary. So Paul and I are very excited for that. Nice. So tune in for that as well. And that's going to be it for all of us here at the Call to Action channel, for everyone inside of the Action Army. Thank you all so much. And as always, we salute you.